Let's begin tonight with former RNC Chairman Michael Steele and Julia Yaffe, a journalist who's covered Russia for many years, is now Washington correspondent for the media company Puck. Julia, what do you think we should take as Americans watching all this in their first face-off?
Well, I think what the Biden administration wants us to take away from this is exactly the opposite of what the media is doing. I think the Biden administration wants this to be a kind of non-newsworthy, more regular event where the American side talks to the Russian side, and there isn't all this hoopla and media circus and pomp and circumstance around it, that it's just like any meeting with any other country, that it's more predictable and focused on tangible things rather than press opportunities. But I think the Russians are pleased to be recognized as kind of equals, as partners, and to be talked to at all, frankly.
Michael?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, Putin was just glad to be in the room. This is not a question of, having the same kind of relationship where he would walk onto that stage as much more of a dominant player over Trump, as we've seen, when they've met before. Biden brought a whole different caliber of that, to that relationship, acknowledged by Putin himself when he says, he's a skilled diplomatic kind of guy, and this is good for the country. It's good for our allies, and it's good for the relationship between our two nations. You cannot repeat enough and make clear enough the outside of nuclear weapons, there is not much else there. All right. You're talking about an economy that is $2 trillion versus $21 trillion here in the U.S. So there are a whole lot of differences that Putin understands that exist between our two nations. The linchpin in that is nuclear weapons, and the role that Russia plays in places like the Middle East, and the impact that they can have certainly and have had and are having currently in Eastern Europe. So that sort of keeps them in the conversation. And so what Biden did today, and I think a lot of people agree, was a reset over what we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. And now there's going to be some adjustment on the part of the Russians in dealing with the United States.
And Michael, the president obviously knew there was going to be a lot of attention on this, even to the point Julia makes, perhaps more than they wanted, given the mood they're setting. He did have a little bit of a flashpoint here with a reporter. Take a look.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident in changing behavior. What do you do all the time? So when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating the fact.
Michael, first of all, journalism 101, you always throw out the extra question. People say, why bother? And then every so often you get the subject marching back. He was vehement there, and for good reason, in the sense that he wants a very clear guidepost of what they are and aren't expecting. Walk us through that moment.
Yeah, politics 101, keep walking. Don't stop. Just when you end it, keep going. Let them throw their questions. You don't hear, I hear nothing. We're walking. That's what he should do. But having come back to answer the question, he got short, and what he heard her say was a misinterpretation of what he had been saying, and so he wanted to clarify that. And so I'm not as exercised about that, because compared to what we've seen presidents, the last president do with the press and reporters, okay. And Biden came out immediately and apologized. He said, "Yeah, I was short. I shouldn't have been." But it does speak to, I think, the kind of pressure that sort of exists around this relationship as it's being reshaped by the Biden administration between the U.S. and Russia. And so he wants everyone to understand, especially Russia. He doesn't want I'm confident that Putin is going to change his behavior. He doesn't want that narrative out there, because he recognizes who he's dealing with, and he recognizes that that's not going to be the kind of position that's going to achieve the goals for the United States, particularly if Putin takes that and goes, oh, so that's what you're trying to do? And it just changes the whole dynamic. So he wanted to be clear.
Yeah. And Julia, on all the hacking and sort of digital cyber attacks here, some of which seem to be linked back to the Putin government. Obviously, the Mueller report documented that in that context, but recently there have been these others that might be non-state actors, might be just criminals over there. It seems to be an escalating issue where the U.S. has to play catch-up. I think any administration taking it seriously, they've dealt with these sort of ransomware attacks. They've dealt with the having companies pay people off and then trying to track back down what they paid in Bitcoin. Anything going on beyond the stage or behind the scenes to get more control over this in Russia, or is it something that U.S. officials basically feel at a certain level they just have to live with?
Well, I think, from the Russian perspective, it's very important for them to build in this appearance of plausible deniability. Well, they're not employed by the government. They don't work for the GRU. They're just random guys, as Putin called them, artists who wake up in the morning and decide to paint, and he has no control over them. And this has been the case for many, many years, including, in some of the hacks around 2016. From the American perspective, it's like, yeah, we know you're in an authoritarian police state. You're telling us you don't know where these guys live. You can't track them down. You can't twist their arm. You can't threaten to arrest them or to arrest them and extradite them. That's frankly BS. So I think behind the scenes, what we're seeing is that the Americans are ramping up potential, what Biden said earlier this spring, that there are going to be measures that are seen and unseen. And today he said, look, there are people sitting in Florida, and I'm guessing in Maryland and Virginia, who could go after your oil pipelines, and you probably wouldn't like that very much because, the Russian economy is kind of a one-trick pony.
Michael, just briefly, they did get into politics because you have a press avail with the president talking to McConnell. Take a look.
Mitch McConnell said that if Republicans were to take back the Senate in 2022, he did not see a way that you could get a Supreme Court justice confirmed.
Mitch has been nothing but no for a long time, and I'm sure he means exactly what he says.
Not the biggest counterpunch. What did you think of that?
No, he's right on both points. And, I wouldn't expect Joe Biden to land a counterpunch there, because he knows he needs Mitch McConnell on infrastructure and a host of other things. But it should be a wake up for Democrats to begin to do the counterpunch downstream. In other words, the president is the president. The Democratic Party is the politics. And they've got to create the space for the president to be able to use that as a weapon against his adversary in the Senate, when that adversary is using politics to block his agenda. He's not blocking Biden on policy. He's blocking him on politics. And so right now, the president of the United States needs a political hammer, and only the Democratic Party can provide that. Not Democratic legislators in the Senate or the House, but the party, the political operators that do that kind of work. And that's why right now the Republicans have the advantage. And Biden, you could tell in that moment, he was sitting there going, damn, I know. Okay, yeah, this is where I am. And Mitch means what he says. And there's not much I can do about it until I get a political hammer.
Right. He said what he said. Michael and Julia.